What if the deepest heartbreak of your 70s isn't loss? It's the sentence you never finished, the hug you didn't offer, the phone call you kept putting off. After 70, time feels different. Days are quieter, faces you love are scattered across states, and small decisions carry a weight they didn't used to. In relationships, tiny choices become turning points. Do you text your son back today or tomorrow? Do you apologize first or wait? Do you say, "I love you," out loud or assume they know? Years later, these little things add up to something big. And for most older adults, the regret doesn't come from dramatic fights, it comes from ordinary moments handled just a little too slowly, a little too stubbornly, or not at all. This video is about those regrets, and how to stop them before they harden. We're going to talk, plainly and gently, about the 5 patterns that keep love at arm's length in later life, the silence that replaces honest words, the pride that refuses to bend, the distance that grows when you wait for them to reach out first, the tension that comes from unspoken boundaries with adult children, and the fading of affection, touch, and romance because no one wants to look needy. None of this makes you a bad person. It makes you human. But it also means there are habits you can change starting today. Here's the hopeful part: relationships are not set in stone at 70 or 80. The heart can learn new moves. Neuroscientists call it plasticity. I call it possibility. When you practice small, repeatable acts, 5 minutes of listening without interrupting, a quick "thinking of you" message, a simple "I'm sorry for my part," you begin to rewrite the story between you and the people who matter most. It isn't grand gestures that mend what's frayed, it's daily, ordinary care, done consistently. And the payoff isn't just emotional. Stronger connections protect your health, lower stress, steadier blood pressure, better sleep, even sharper memory. Love doesn't just feel good, it's medicine that your body recognizes. You might be thinking, "But they hurt me," or "It's been too long," or "They should come first." I understand. We'll hold that pain with respect. Still, there are moments when the bravest move is to go first, not to accept blame for everything, but to open a door that's been stuck. If you want fewer regrets, you must choose the courage of a first step. That's the quiet secret most elders discover too late. You can't control other people, but you can control the invitation. You can choose clarity over guessing, warmth over winning, questions over conclusions. In the next sections, you'll hear real stories from across America, people in their 70s and 80s who thought it was too late and found out it wasn't. You'll meet grandparents who rebuilt trust after silence, partners who rekindled closeness after illness, and parents who set kind, clear boundaries and became closer to their adult children because of it. We'll pair each story with practical steps you can use today, simple practices to avoid common traps and build the kind of closeness that lasts. Think of it as a relationship tune-up for your golden years: small adjustments, steady practice, big results. If your goal is fewer regrets and more peace, stay with me. The next 5 chapters will show you exactly where to start. Regret number 1: not saying what needed to be said. One of the most painful relationship regrets seniors face is this: the words left unsaid. After 70, the weight of silence feels heavier than ever. You may think back to the countless times you wanted to say, "I'm sorry," "I forgive you," or simply, "I love you," but the moment slipped by. At first, these missed chances don't seem like much. But over years, these little unspoken moments become the things that haunt older adults the most. Because here's the truth: people don't usually regret what they said, they regret what they never had the courage to say. Take the story of Margaret Stevens, a 72-year-old widow from Des Moines, Iowa. Margaret had always had a complicated relationship with her younger sister, June. They disagreed often, usually about small family matters: who would host Thanksgiving, how to divide their parents' heirlooms, whether June was doing enough to help their mother in her last years. For decades, they spoke only occasionally, with conversations clipped and tense. When June passed away suddenly from a heart condition at 67, Margaret was crushed by grief. But it wasn't just the loss of her sister, it was the avalanche of unsaid words. "I never told her how proud I was of the way she cared for Mom in the final years," Margaret confessed. "I never told her I was sorry for being so stubborn." Her regret was not about the fights they had, but about the healing she never allowed to happen. Margaret's story reflects what researchers have found again and again. A study from the University of Chicago revealed that older adults rank not expressing feelings as one of the top life regrets. Psychologists suggest that unspoken emotions create unfinished chapters in our lives. The brain tends to ruminate on incomplete business, replaying what-if scenarios over and over. For seniors, this rumination can increase stress hormones, disrupt sleep, and even worsen memory decline. In other words, silence isn't just emotional, it can harm physical health too. So how do we avoid this trap? Experts recommend adopting daily communication habits that reduce the chances of regret. It doesn't need to be dramatic. A short phone call once a week, a handwritten note, even leaving a voicemail that simply says, "Thinking of you." These practices may seem small, but they protect against lifelong regret. Dr. Laura Carstensen, a Stanford psychologist who studies aging, explains it this way: as people grow older, they become more selective with relationships. They focus on the emotionally meaningful. That makes honest communication not only important, but essential. The good news is that it's never too late. Many seniors assume their family members already know how they feel, but assumptions are not enough. Words carry healing power, and they must be spoken. One of the healthiest habits you can form after 70 is choosing expression over silence, clarity over assumption. Margaret eventually began writing letters to her sister, even though June had passed, and to her own children and grandchildren. She wanted to make sure that no one else in her life would ever have to guess how much she loved them. That decision didn't erase the regret, but it transformed it into a lesson. For her, and now for you, the message is clear: speak while you can. Because the words you avoid today may become the regrets you carry tomorrow. Regret number 2, holding on to pride. If silence is the first great regret, the second is its stubborn twin, pride. After 70, pride has often been carried for a lifetime. It shows up in subtle but powerful habits: refusing to apologize first, holding back forgiveness until the other person deserves it, or waiting for someone else to call because they should be the one to reach out. These things may feel like protection, but for most seniors, they become barriers that wall off the very love and connection they crave. Pride whispers, "You'll lose if you bend first." Yet in truth, pride steals more from relationships than any argument ever could. Consider Robert Hayes, a 76-year-old retired carpenter from Charleston, South Carolina. For years, Robert was locked in a cold standoff with his son, Michael. The fight had started small. Michael wanted to pursue music instead of joining the family carpentry business. Robert felt disrespected and disappointed. Michael felt unsupported. For 20 years, the two barely spoke. "I kept waiting for him to apologize for turning his back on tradition," Robert admitted. "I thought if I gave in first, I'd lose." But what Robert eventually realized, far too late, was that his silence had cost him decades of relationship. He missed birthdays, holidays, and even the birth of his grandson, all because of pride. Stories like Robert's are heartbreaking but common. Psychologists note that as people age, they often become more rigid in their thinking. A 2018 study published in Psychology and Aging found that seniors who cling to unresolved conflicts experience higher levels of stress and depression, as well as weaker immune systems. In other words, holding on to pride doesn't just hurt relationships, it damages health. Pride isn't strength, it's a slow poison that isolates and weakens. The way to avoid this regret is simple but not easy: humility. Choosing to take the first step toward peace. Dr. John Gottman, a leading relationship researcher, points out that in long-term connections, the most resilient couples and families are those where at least one person makes repair attempts during conflict. Repair attempts are small gestures, saying, "I might be wrong," extending a hand after an argument, or sending a simple message like, "I'd like to talk." These are not signs of weakness, they are signs of emotional courage. Robert eventually came to this realization. At 74, after attending a senior support group, he decided he didn't want to leave the world with this regret. He wrote Michael a letter that began simply, "I should have told you a long time ago. I love you, and I was wrong to stay silent." To his surprise, Michael wrote back. The reunion wasn't instant or perfect, but it was real. Now, Robert spends weekends visiting his grandson, catching up on years he thought were gone forever. So here's the question for you, watching this now: are you carrying pride that has cost you closeness? Think about it honestly. Sometimes, the bravest move you must make is lowering your guard. And if you've stayed with me up to this point, you're proving you have the courage to face these truths. Let me know you're still here. Type number 2 in the comments right now. And while you're at it, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel Golden Age Wisdom, and share it with someone who might need this reminder. Because none of us should let pride be the reason we grow old alone. Regret number 3, not nurturing family bonds. The third great regret many seniors confess, often with a heavy sigh, is failing to nurture family bonds. After 70, when children are grown and grandchildren are scattered, you begin to notice the spaces left behind by years of missed dinners, skipped visits, or conversations that never went deeper than, "How are you?" In surveys of older adults, family connection consistently ranks as one of the most important sources of happiness in later life. Yet it's also one of the most fragile. If left unattended, family ties weaken, not because of a single dramatic break, but because of slow neglect. These are the quiet, overlooked things that eventually lead to regret: the birthday party you didn't attend, the graduation you missed, or the habit of letting months slip by without a call. Take the story of Linda Martinez, a 74-year-old grandmother from Phoenix, Arizona. Linda spent most of her life working long hours as a nurse. She loved her job, but it left little time for family gatherings. After retirement, she assumed her children and grandchildren would naturally gravitate back to her. But they didn't. Her son had moved to Denver, her daughter to Seattle. Visits became rare. "I always thought we'd be closer once I had more time," Linda said, but by then, they already had their own habits, their own circles. Holidays felt quieter each year, and Linda began to realize that the bonds she had hoped would be strong were, in truth, fragile. Her biggest regret wasn't that her children had drifted, it was that she hadn't invested in nurturing the relationship when she had the chance. Science backs Linda's story. A 2019 study from Harvard Study of Adult Development, the longest-running study on happiness, found that the quality of family and social connections was the single strongest predictor of health and life satisfaction in old age. Seniors with weak family ties were more likely to suffer from depression, cognitive decline, and even heart disease. In short, neglecting family doesn't just cause loneliness, it can shorten your life. Relationships are not just emotional, they are physiological, shaping everything from blood pressure to immune strength. So how can you avoid this regret? It doesn't require grand gestures or expensive trips. What it requires is intentionality. Build small, regular habits of connection. A weekly phone call, even if only 10 minutes, tells your children or grandchildren that you care. Video calls may feel awkward at first, but they allow you to be present for daily life moments, not just holidays. Some seniors create traditions, like Sunday pancake breakfasts or monthly family update letters, that keep them woven into the family's rhythm. These small, steady acts accumulate over time into stronger bonds. Linda eventually decided to change. She began scheduling weekly video calls with her granddaughter in Seattle. They started a ritual of reading bedtime stories together over the phone. Over time, her children began to look forward to the calls as much as she did. Linda realized that while she couldn't undo the years she had neglected, she could create a new pattern for the years ahead. The lesson is clear: family bonds don't maintain themselves. They require tending, like a garden. If you want your golden years to be filled with warmth rather than regret, you must choose to nurture them now, one call, one letter, one visit at a time. Regret number 4, skipping social connection beyond family. While family bonds are central, the fourth regret many seniors confess is overlooking friendships and community ties, the wider circles of connection that bring color and vitality to life. After 70, when routines narrow and energy is often reserved for family, it's easy to let friendships slip away. Yet decades of research show that social connection outside of family is one of the most powerful predictors of happiness and long-term health. Neglecting these connections may feel harmless in the moment, but in the end, these are the things that leave seniors feeling isolated, unseen, and regretful. Let's look at the story of James Whitaker, an 81-year-old veteran living in Columbus, Ohio. James had always been close to his fellow soldiers, his brothers, as he called them. But over the years, he let those connections fade. "I thought once I had kids and grandkids, that would be enough," James admitted. "But there's something different about friends. They know your younger self. They remind you of who you were. By the time he reached his late 70s, most of his old friends had passed, and James realized he had spent decades without cultivating new ones. His regret wasn't just about lost companionship, it was about losing parts of himself that only friends could reflect back. Science echoes James's experience. A 2020 study in the journal The Gerontologist found that seniors with robust social networks beyond family had a 50% lower risk of dementia and a significantly lower risk of depression. Friendships stimulate conversation, laughter, and intellectual engagement, factors that keep the brain sharp. In fact, researchers note that social isolation is as harmful to health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That stark comparison reminds us that skipping out on community is not just an emotional oversight, it's a medical risk. So how do we avoid this regret? The answer is surprisingly simple: lean into small acts of connection. Rejoin a local church group, attend senior center activities, volunteer at a library, or join a walking club. These activities aren't just pastimes, they are lifelines. The habits of showing up, greeting others, and sharing stories create a rhythm of belonging. One of the must-do steps for seniors seeking joy in later life is intentionally building community outside the walls of family. James eventually took this advice. With encouragement from his daughter, he joined a local veterans coffee group that met every Tuesday morning. At first, he felt awkward, like too much time had passed. But soon, he found himself laughing, reminiscing, and even mentoring younger vets. It felt like coming home, James said. That simple choice reignited his sense of identity and gave him something to look forward to every week. So let me ask you, are you still with me here in paragraph 5? If yes, prove it, type number 4 in the comments right now. And while you're there, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel Golden Age Wisdom, and share it with someone who might need the reminder that friendships and community are not optional, they're essential. Because loneliness is preventable, and connection is always within reach, no matter your age. Regret number 5, letting affection fade/ignoring intimacy. The fifth regret may be the most surprising one: letting affection fade, or ignoring intimacy altogether. Many seniors assume that closeness, holding hands, hugging, kissing, or even simply saying, "I love you," naturally decreases with age. After 70, some believe that physical or emotional intimacy is not for us anymore. But in reality, intimacy is not just for the young. It remains one of the most important parts of emotional well-being in later years. When seniors let affection slip away, whether out of embarrassment, health challenges, or long-standing routine, they often find themselves regretting the lost opportunities to show and feel love. These small gestures may seem like little things, but they are the glue that keeps relationships tender, alive, and deeply human. Consider Eleanor Brooks, a 79-year-old retired teacher from San Antonio, Texas. Eleanor was married to her husband, Thomas, for 52 years. In their younger days, they were affectionate, walking hand in hand through the park, leaving notes for each other on the kitchen table. But over time, as daily stress took over, those habits disappeared. "We stopped holding hands in public, stopped kissing goodnight," Eleanor confessed. When Thomas passed away suddenly from a stroke, Eleanor's deepest regret wasn't the vacations they never took or the projects they never finished, it was that she had let those little signs of love slip away. "I would give anything," she said, "just to hold his hand one more time." Science confirms what Eleanor felt. Research published in Social Psychological and Personality Science shows that physical affection, like hugging, releases oxytocin, a hormone that lowers stress and boosts feelings of safety and connection. Another study from the University of Arizona found that seniors who reported higher levels of physical affection had better sleep, stronger immune systems, and greater overall health. Affection is not optional, it's a biological must for emotional and physical vitality. So how do you avoid this silent regret? By embracing affection as a daily habit. Intimacy doesn't have to mean grand displays, it can be a gentle hand on the shoulder, a hug before bed, or even saying, "I love you" more often. If you're married, it might mean rekindling small rituals of touch and tenderness. If you're widowed or single, it can mean showing affection through hugs with friends, grandchildren, or even pets. Humans are wired for connection, and touch is one of the most powerful ways to express it. Eleanor eventually found healing by nurturing new forms of intimacy. She began spending more time with her grandchildren, greeting them with long hugs and kisses on the forehead. She also joined a widow support group, where members often shared not just stories but simple physical gestures of support, like holding hands during prayer. I realized intimacy isn't just about marriage, Eleanor reflected. It's about never letting love go unspoken or unfelt. The truth is, affection has no expiration date. It's a lifelong gift, one you should never stop giving. The regret of ignoring intimacy is avoidable if you choose today to make love, whether through touch, words, or gestures, a living, breathing part of your daily life. Final conclusion. As we reach the final part of our discussion, it's worth taking a deep breath and reflecting on the 5 regrets that most seniors face in relationships after 70. First, the words left unsaid, the apologies, the "I love yous," the moments of clarity never shared. Second, holding on to pride, stubbornly believing that being first to forgive or reach out is weakness. Third, neglecting family bonds, assuming they will naturally sustain themselves without intentional care. Fourth, skipping social connection beyond family, letting friendships and community ties fade quietly into the background. And fifth, letting affection fade, ignoring intimacy, and underestimating the profound healing power of touch and closeness. Taken together, these regrets are not trivial, they are the subtle, everyday choices that, over time, shape whether our later years are filled with warmth, joy, and closeness, or with loneliness, frustration, and longing. Stories like those of Margaret in Iowa, Robert in South Carolina, Linda in Arizona, James in Ohio, and Eleanor in Texas illustrate that regret is not inevitable. Each of these seniors experienced the weight of missed opportunities, of pride and hesitation, and yet each found ways to transform their relationships, even in later life. Margaret wrote letters to express love that had gone unspoken. Robert extended a hand first and reconnected with his son. Linda created weekly rituals to nurture family ties. James joined a veterans group to restore friendship and community. Eleanor embraced touch and small gestures of intimacy to sustain love in new ways. Their experiences show us that change is possible, these habits can be learned and practiced, and it is never too late to begin again. Science reinforces this hope. Studies consistently link close relationships to better health outcomes in seniors, lower rates of depression, reduced risk of cognitive decline, improved cardiovascular function, and even longer lifespan. The Harvard Study of Adult Development, one of the longest-running studies on human happiness, concluded that strong personal connections are more important than money, career success, or even genetics. This is not just theory, it is proof that the everyday decisions to speak, forgive, connect, and show love have measurable effects on longevity and well-being. So what does this mean for you? It means that your golden years can be the richest, most connected period of your life if you choose to prioritize these 5 areas. You must speak your heart, release pride, nurture family, maintain friendships, and keep affection alive. These are not burdens, they are opportunities to invest in your own emotional and physical health, to create days filled with meaning, and to leave a legacy of love rather than regret. Every small gesture counts, every phone call, every hug, every note or message matters more than you might imagine. And now, if you've watched all the way to the end, I want to hear from you. Type number 5 in the comments below to show that you're committed to building stronger, happier relationships. While you're at it, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel Golden Age Wisdom, and share it with someone who could benefit from these insights. One small action today can change the trajectory of your relationships tomorrow. Remember, regrets are not destiny. They are signals, reminders that guide us to better choices. With courage, intention, and consistent action, you can rewrite the story of your relationships, deepen your connections, and step into your later years with confidence, love, and joy. Your heart is still capable of growth, healing, and profound connection. Never underestimate the power of these choices. Make them today, and your future self will thank you.